Say, you wouldn't by any chance be Mike Milligan and the Kitchen Brothers, would you?
You make us sound like a prog rock band. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Mike Milligan and the Kitchen Brothers.
So let's start Fargo. Fargo, you're talking about the TV show, obviously, not the movie. Jethro Tull, Locomotive Breath. I don't know if I'll be able to turn you off when it comes to talking about Jethro Tull. You've become such a huge Tull fan.
Well, I've never not been a huge Tull fan.
Yeah. I actually grew up a big Tull fan because of my brother, and then now some of that stuff has definitely come back to me. But we used to love the albums like Thick as a Brick and Passion Play, which were like one song per side kind of thing.
Yeah, I wasn't an album guy with them. It was all based on the one compilation. Not the one that gets 5 stars in Rolling Stone, which I now have. I didn't have at the time. It was the sort of cheap, let's make money one, MU, the best stuff.
Right, that had the white cover with the silhouette of him playing the flute.
Exactly.
Or whatever, right? Yeah,
exactly.
We had that one too, actually.
Yeah, and Living with the Past, which is the more, the more prestigious rock critically one, that came out earlier, and I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to just play that album to death in high school. And then through my many different things, punk and whatever, the American stuff, and Jesus and Mary Chain, Neil Young, I never stopped liking a few songs from that, loving a few songs from that.
Well, they have a little bit of that, in some ways, that connection to the British folk a little bit, right? Like some of their
Very
stuff
much
definitely evokes that. So
very much so, especially something like Thick as a Brick, right?
So I did watch the scene. The scene is like, wow, there's like so much going on in there.
Yeah.
So set it up. Like I haven't watched Fargo, the TV show.
Sure.
But yeah, it was just a while, just coming in out of the blue the way I did. It was just like, holy crap, there's just a lot going on here. So
yeah, you know what? And I rewatched it about a week ago, and I did mean to take another look at it, but I think I can describe it pretty well. So this is the second season of Fargo. I love the movie. Movie's one of my certainly one of my favorite Coen Brothers films. And so I went into the series sort of apprehensive. First season was pretty good, the Billy Bob Thornton season. It's the one that stuck closest to the film. Not the same characters, but it had kind of stand-ins for the film's main characters, and it had very much the same feel to it. You had the detective was like Francis McDormand. Billy Bob Thornton was kind of a composite of the 2 villains in the movie, and then you had this hapless guy that gets dragged into it all. I liked the first season enough that I watched the second season, started the second season. I was not prepared for how great I thought it was. I just think it's fantastic. It's really up there on my list of TV shows. The third season wasn't crazy about it. It wasn't terrible, but it was such a come down. Second season, again, it's where did they come up with this stuff? It's set in 79, I think, because Reagan is in it. You get Reagan out campaigning in an episode or two. And it's this family in Minnesota, and they kind of run a crime empire. I should have looked up the name of the family, of course, forgot. And they're being... Actually, let me get things in the right order. What sets the whole story into motion is they've got 3 sons in this family. The father's about to die. He's not in great health. He's getting old. And the mother, she kind of rules the family at this point. Great performance by Jean Smart, who was in Designing Women, I think.
Yeah, I recognized her from that.
Yeah, she is so good in that. There's 3 sons. One of them who clearly wants to be the guy that takes over the family, Dodd. The other second son, who's hardly says anything, but he's pretty sharp too. But then the third son's a complete screw up, and at the beginning of the film, he tries to shake down a judge There's gets shot at this diner, doesn't die, but as he crawls out the parking lot, he gets run over by Kirsten Dunst. She's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And she's married to Jesse Plemons from Friday Night Lights. Now, he's not killed, but rather than just leaving him there, she stuffs him in the trunk. They take him home, and they keep him hostage for about 3 days till they finally kill him. And that sets the whole story in motion. They don't know what they've gotten involved in. They're now in the middle. They're now involved with this, crime syndicate. And meanwhile, the Minnesota, this family, they're being threatened by a Kansas City mob people. And the two guys they send out, they're not the bosses. They're like in the Sopranos. They're like the captains. One of them is, can't think of the actor's name. He's on Seinfeld. Brad somebody. You would recognize him. And the other guy is the character is Mike Milligan. The actor I mentioned, I should always check these things. I forget the actor's name. It's fun. It's something Woodbine. He is so good. This character. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. He's an African-American gangster. In 1979, he was like the right-hand captain in this mob syndicate. It's not totally credible, but he is so good. And the Jethro Tull thing, I said, it's prefaced by a joke he makes earlier. He shows up in Minnesota to basically take over, at least strike a deal with this other family. And he's got this weird way of, he thinks, before he talks, he always thinks, and he's philosophical. And somebody says something to him and he goes, "Oh, you make us sound like a prog rock band." Mike Milligan, and, I forget what he calls themselves. Mike Milligan does something. And then sure enough, this episode starts, it's where they're burying the father. It starts with the funeral. No, it actually, it's before that. It starts with the Kansas City mob meeting, and they're meeting in a high-rise building. And you see these window washers come up, and they're washing the windows. And then they pull out machine guns, and they gun these guys down. And then the Jethro Tull song, which has kind of one of those slow, fractured beginnings that starts. And then you cut to the funeral. And like you say, so much happens. You get the funeral. The song plays full blast, or certainly loud enough, and then there's more murders, and you keep cutting back to the funeral, and it's such a sinister song in that context. Not a Jethro, I have many favorite Jethro Tull songs. That was never one of them until I saw this scene.
Shuffling madness of the locomotive breath runs the all-time loser headlong to his.
And that to me was a highlight, but there was other really good music in that second season of Fargo. The one that I thought of today was they used Three Dog Night, Shambhala, great.
Really? You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
I've been saying for years, someone has to use Shambhala in a movie or something.
Oh, I love that
It's just
song.
got such a great feel to it. I've always thought that, really, so it's used, eh?
I think it's
That's
the
awesome.
daughter. I think the daughter is just driving along and it plays off the radio. I can't remember.
Just that intro is so perfect for
Yeah,
movies.
that is a great
Wow.
song. I think that's one of the great sort of just pure AM top 40 hits of
I agree.
the mid-70s. B.W. Stevenson wrote it, I think.
Who's B.W. Stevenson?
He's the guy that he had a hit with My Maria. I think he also wrote Shambhala. And I meant to look it up again. Sorry, I didn't do my homework today. I meant to look up some. I mentioned them. No, I didn't do an entry on Fargo.
You don't. That I was actually going to ask you about other music because you don't actually mention anything else in it. So
I
I was
thought
happy
of
to
that,
hear you
I know.
now. You said Shambhala. That's great.
I rewatched the second season with the express purpose of doing an entry on it, and I never got around to it. I probably wrote about all the songs I liked on an ILX comment.
Okay.
But there were 4 or 5 things because again it was set in the 70s, and the other, besides the music, the other thing that was so good about that second season was it really had a feel for kind of this thing in 40s film noir where you get a sense that a noose is tightening on somebody. You know, it almost always involves hapless people getting dragged into something. And in the second season of Fargo, it's Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons who through sheer happenstance of her running over this guy in the parking lot, get drawn into this. And they're just so, they just don't belong in this world. And the scene that I love so much is where the one detective who's played by a guy, he's such a good actor, Robert Patrick, I think his name is. Ted Danson plays his father-in-law, who's also a detective, and I've never seen Ted Danson so good.
Wow.
He just gives a great performance. Anyway, Robert Patrick, if I've got the name right, sits them down at one point to tell them, you don't know what you're involved in. And it was such a classic noir scene, the way he talked to them to let them know that, you know, this family, these people are horrible people and they know who you are and they're coming for you. And I'm giving you a chance now to get out of this. And he used some analogy about a soldier in war. And that scene was just so good. It was like, it could have been out of Double Indemnity or something.
Wow.
And that was the other highlight of the season for me. And the Jethro Tull song kind of, Locomotive Breath kind of captured that sinister aspect to the second season of Fargo. The only weird thing is they had this alien subplot that really made no sense to me at all. So I highly recommend it.